Hi everyone, it's Ruby G.
And I'm Joff.
Welcome to Truth and Neurons.
Today we're talking about the compromised evidence. On November 16, just 3 days after the unalivings at 1122 King Road, at about 7:45am, 4 autopsies were performed at the Spokane County Medical Examiner's Office in Washington. Present at these autopsies were Latah County Coroner Kathy Mabbutt, law enforcement officers, and Dr. Singh, who conducted the postmortems on Zana Knodel, Ethan Chapin, Madison Mogan, and Kaylee Gonzalez. From the very beginning, this case was plagued by confusion. Redactions in documents created speculation that important medical details were being hidden. What later became clear is that the real problem was not missing text in reports, but the way the evidence itself was handled. Critical biological samples were taken from all 4 victims. These included swabs from private parts, hands, feet, necks, other body surfaces, DNA blood cards, nail clippings, hair samples. The evidence was moved between agencies, dried at FBI facilities, repackaged, and then stored at the Moscow Police Department. More than 2 years later, in January 2025, a refrigerator malfunction left those samples at 60 degrees Fahrenheit. Forensic science depends on preservation, and in this case, preservation failed.
Kaylee Gonzalez. Kaylee sustained more than 20 stab wounds. Her fatal injuries included a laceration to the left lung, a laceration to the liver, 2 subdural bleeds, and a stab wound behind her clavicle that severed her subclavian vein and artery. She also showed blunt force injuries and signs of asphyxia. The evidence collected from Kaylee included a DNA card, swabs from her private parts, and swabs from her hands, wrists, forearms, feet, ankles, and neck. Nail clippings and head hair were taken, and her hands were bagged. She was still wearing her full clothing, a black, nasty and inebriated Corner Club t-shirt, Joe Boxer, grey and black flannel pants, a black flannel shirt layered over her top, underwear, 1 Adidas sock, and her earrings. This was not sleepwear. It indicated that she had not prepared for bed. All of Kaylee's biological samples were eventually stored in the MPD refrigerator that malfunctioned in 2025. Swabs from her private parts and body surfaces are exactly the types of samples most vulnerable to temperature fluctuations. The defense can argue that the DNA results tied to Kaylee cannot be trusted after sitting in compromised conditions.
Madison Mogan. Madison's fatal injuries included a laceration to her left lung and a laceration to her liver. She had sharp force injuries, but no blunt force trauma. The evidence collected included a DNA card, swabs from her private parts, hands, wrists, forearms, feet, ankles, and neck, head hair, nail clippings, and trace evidence. Her hands were bagged. She was found in a short-sleeved pink shirt, black Vandal Russell brand sweatpants, with her hair tied back and false eyelashes in place. Madison's swabs, like Kaylee's, went through multiple transfers, taken at autopsy, placed in FBI dryers, repackaged, and stored in the MPD fridge. When the fridge alarm went off in January 2025, her swabs, nail clippings, and DNA card were inside.
Zana Knodel. Zana suffered 1 laceration to her right lung and 2 lacerations to her heart. She had over 50 stab wounds. She had only sharp force injuries. Evidence taken included a DNA card, swabs from her private parts, thighs, hands, wrists, forearms, feet, ankles, and neck, nail clippings, head hair, pubic hair, and trace evidence from her left hand and the body bag. She was wearing a grey Under Armour sweatshirt and beige Calvin Klein underwear, with her hands and foot bagged. Zana's trace evidence is especially significant. Fibres, residues, or particles can only be interpreted if collected and preserved correctly. Yet these examples were among those exposed when the refrigerator failed. For a period, they were kept in an outbuilding with doors open to the winter air, a direct breach of forensic standards. For the defence, this is a powerful argument. If trace evidence was mishandled in this way, how can it be trusted in court?
Ethan Chapin. Ethan's fatal injury was a stab wound under his left clavicle, severed his subclavian vein, subclavian artery, and jugular vein. He had only sharp force injuries. The evidence collected included swabs from his private parts, hands, wrists, forearms and ankles, as well as nail clippings, head hair and a DNA card. Unlike the others, Ethan was found with no clothing, only socks, a bracelet and a necklace were logged. Every one of Ethan's samples was stored in the refrigerator that failed. Swabs from his private parts and other body areas were placed at risk of DNA degradation when exposed to 60 degrees Fahrenheit.
So if the defence chooses to argue this, Brian Kohberger has already entered a plea deal, but the case remains active. That means that the defence still has opportunities to raise these issues, appeals, or if the plea is ever revisited. The refrigerator malfunction in January 2025 is not a trivial oversight. It touched every victim's evidence. Swabs from private parts, surface swabs, DNA blood cards, nail clippings, head and pubic hair, and Zana's trace evidence were all affected. By the time the problem was discovered, the refrigerator was already at 60 degrees Fahrenheit. From a defence standpoint, the chain of custody is riddled with weak points. Evidence moved from Spokane autopsies to FBI dryers to MPD storage. Wet clothing and swabs from different victims were dried in the same FBI equipment. When the refrigerator failed, samples were hastily moved into an outbuilding with open garage doors, exposed to uncontrolled conditions before being placed in a replacement fridge.
These are not small errors. They represent systemic failures to maintain forensic integrity. The defence could argue that swabs from private parts may have degraded, trace evidence may have been contaminated, chain of custody was overly complex, creating room for mistakes. DNA results obtained afterwards can't be considered reliable. Even with a plea deal in place, the mishandling of evidence remains a central issue. The defence has a clear path to argue that the state failed in its duty to preserve critical biological evidence. That argument does not disappear with a conviction. It lingers in appeals, in sentencing disputes, and in the public record. The refrigerator failure of January 2025 highlights the fragility of forensic evidence. It shows how quickly a homicide investigation can lose credibility, what little it had left, and when basic preservation standards are not met. A jury presented with this information could reasonably conclude that the science can't be trusted. At its core, this case is a warning. If evidence is not preserved under strict, consistent conditions, then the conclusions drawn from it can't be trusted. The defence can say with confidence, a conviction based on compromised evidence will never be free from doubt. I'm going to repeat that. I think that's powerful. A conviction based on compromised evidence will never be free from doubt. This is the lesson of the IDAHO4 case, not just about guilt or innocence, but about the importance of forensic integrity in every criminal investigation.
That's all for today's episode of Truth and Neurons. If you found this analysis helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe. Leave a comment below with your thoughts on the ethics of media commentary in high-profile cases. Until next time, keep thinking critically and questioning everything. Cheers, bye.